risk. I'm very likely just to break down and cry right in the middle of it, so you'll have to excuse me in advance if I do.
I'll get it all.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to presume to speak for my mother briefly here, and let me give you my credentials for doing that. Nobody in this room has known her as long as me, except, of course, Joni, her sister. I've seen every phase that she has ever been through. I sort of was someplace nearby when it happened. I want to presume to speak for her first by thanking some of the people who made her life in these particularly this last period, something that she could get through, not just survive, but get through with a great deal of zest and vigor and energy, and still keep who she was without losing who she was in the process. And I want to thank particularly that group of friends that surrounded her, Matt and Becky and Bridget and Richard, and I just go down the list, and Betty. I remember towards the end, I would frequently come and we would sit and talk, and at some point she would, life was really hard for her. It was hard to get and do the things that she needed to do. And I often said to her, I said, Mom, you could come and move in with us and it would be easier. And, she didn't, hit me over the head with a book or anything like that, but she would say, maybe someday I'll have to do that. But the subtext for that was simply, you're not getting me out of this neighborhood and away from my friends, because that's my my survival ship, my safety net, I got, when I started thanking some of those people, the response I got from them was, of course we did that. It was she was our friend. She was somebody that we loved and cared for. And I bless you, for that. So I presume to speak for my mother by thanking you for that, that you did. And my sister, who, in the days that my mother struggled, spent huge amounts of time and energy trying to get her to doctors and to hospitals. I presume to speak for my mother, thanking you for all the things you did and how you made her, the last period of her life so much easier to bear, so much more possible for her. I guess I could keep on this presumption, because I think particularly those who were close to us over the whole length of her life, in her struggle to be free, sometimes we got, sort of the short end of the stick. And, often, we weren't taken into consideration. And so we might have suffered a little as a result of that. And I certainly was a party to that suffering, and so were, some of the rest of you. But one of the things I got from her that I'll never, ever, ever be able to let go of or ever want to let go of is that same desire for freedom that she, held on to so closely. The idea that somehow or other, not being held down, not being told this is the way you're supposed to do it, she never did that to us. She never did that to me. No matter what, sort of oddball, crazy course or direction I took, she was going, oh, well, that's interesting. Why don't you try that and see how it turns out for you? And half the time she'd be there at my back. One of my favorite stories is in the 60s or someplace in that period. It's all kind of fuzzy now. We got on a bus in Detroit with about, 75, 100 or so other people, most of whom were way younger than my mother. And we went to Washington, D.C., where we marched on the Pentagon. So here I am with my mother in a gas cloud, standing in front of the Pentagon with a whole line of soldiers in front of us with fixed bayonets, standing to protect the Pentagon, which, by the way, is a wall about 65 feet tall that we couldn't get over even if we wanted to. But there they are, guarding this wall, and the gas is in the air. And at various different points, everybody in the crowd would drop to the ground to show their lack of aggressiveness. But at other points, people would stand up, to show that they were in solidarity with each other. Well, my mother wasn't sure when to stand up or when to sit down. So at some point, she's sitting on the ground and everybody's standing up, and I'm yelling, "Get up, Mother! Get up!" That's my mother. One of those kinds of events in my life after another. So even though sometimes living with somebody who demanded freedom from the world, was difficult and, hard to bear, I learned so much from her as a result. I learned what it means to be a woman in a world where women were not necessarily always given the kind of respect and, the things that were due to them. I watched her fight that kind of oppression with all her heart and all her mind without ever once waving a flag or a sign or anything, just by being who she was and never giving up, just by pushing forward and never giving up. This was her favorite poem, and I'd like to share it with you, because I'll bet you my 6 minutes are probably up. But I wrote this poem for her. This is a pretty long time ago. The poem is "With No Windows, Only Windows." You've got to imagine my mother when you're hearing the poem. With no windows, only windows, an electric clock to your ache. In rivers you only half believed were there. She danced among her things like the taste of salt unsmelt. Her bony hands, an eternal breastless blueprint, weaving through you this memory, curling your ache with her own kind of drug. And the cellars grow, and they come and go, an empty intaglio of pain, padded so thick you ate them bones and all. Will this one more house save you from madness? You ask a woman who could not cook, but who shared your fear that reality was the floor plan, not the house. She answered, "No windows, only windows," and blew through the house to count the delphinium for soup.
Well, earlier today, I actually had a memory that I completely forgot about till several hours ago. 3 years ago, my son lost his father, and I sang the Ave Maria for his mass right across the street. And Grandma asked me, "Will you sing the Ave Maria at my funeral?" And I said, "Grandma, you don't even believe in God." And she said, "Well, I might now." So Anne, I'm going to send you up to heaven.
Grazie Peace of the Storm by Mark Stream. From the shadow of domes in the city of domes, snowflake, a blizzard of warm, weightless, entered your room and made its way to the arm of the chair where you, looking up from your book, saw it the moment it landed. That's all there was to it. No more than a solemn waking to brevity, to the lifting and falling away of attention. Swiftly, time between times, flowerless funeral. No more than that, except for the feeling that this piece of the storm, which turned into nothing before your eyes, would come back. And some years hence, sitting as you are now, I'd say, it's time, the air is ready, the sky isn't open.
Thank you, Betty. Now we're going to hear from Rebecca Lockhart as a tribute to Anne.
Hi, everybody. I'm one of the folks who was managed by Anne Kennedy in the Cass Corridor. I think many of you know what that means. She was, she loved us all, but she also knew what we should be doing next, and perhaps how we should do it. So she cut you a lot of flack, Mike. She gave you a lot of freedom, but we were under a pretty tight rein in the Cass Corridor. She loved us all, and that was just so much fun. Mike, you had the audacity to thank us for serving Anne at the end, but no, we were having fun. We had fun at meals every day, or not every day, but when we had a couple times a week to go over there. We sat down, had our caviar, had our oysters, had our shrimp, and just had a ball. And maybe too much wine, but had a ball. And so, no, we were having fun. Anne was impulsive. If she called you up and said, I'm thinking about X, it had already, if you thought about it overnight and called to her with a suggestion in the next morning, forget it. It was done. She'd done it, whatever way was in her head at that moment. So you better be on your toes when Anne calls you with a suggestion, because if you don't respond to it and give your input, the thing's done. She was that kind of person. So we all know about being managed by Anne, but it was always in a positive way. I never ever saw Anne cry. She talked about grief, especially if she lost a beloved pet, especially with Barbara. I actually met Anne when she was Anne and Barbara, just like you called us Matt and Becky. When I met Anne, she was Anne and Barbara. And so learning who Anne was after we lost Barbara was a very interesting course to take and a path to take with her. And that's when we really got to know Anne and really had this roller coaster fun ride of friendship with Anne. So I'm going to have the audacity also to speak for Anne to her friends. And this is a very brief poem, and it's in the voice of a beloved pet who is speaking to their companion and owner. So this is written by a pet grief expert. So this is to you, to us. And this, I have the audacity to know that this is what Anne would want to say. This is actually Glynis uses this poem of condolence for her clients' owners when one of them passes, and I think it kind of fits. So here's Anne speaking to us. To those I love, grieve not, nor speak of me with tears, but laugh and talk of me as if I were beside you there. When you hear a song or see a bird I loved, please do not let the thought of me be sad, for I am loving you, just as I always have. You are so good to me. There are so many things I still wanted to do, so many things to say to you. Remember, I did not have fear. It was just leaving you that was so hard to face. We cannot see beyond, but this I know. I love you so. 'Twas heaven here with you. Thank you.